It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity.
Hello, model citizens. Welcome to Humanity Junction. Tonight on Trains and Tech, we're going to talk about my upcoming Benchwork build. Yeah, it's not quite starting yet. I still have a tiny bit left to do prepping the space, but the space is pretty cleared out. I mean, if you look behind me, there's not a lot left in the space that I need to clean out. You can probably, or at least I can hear the reverberation just of me talking in the space because of how empty it is in here. But the 19th, next Saturday, or this coming Saturday, Jerry's going to come up here with a truckload of wood. We are going to haul it up into this space, and we are going to magically create some bench work. So if anybody's around in this area that wants to come hang out, I'll buy lunch, just chat about trains and build some bench work maybe. It'll all be fun, but we're getting there slowly. I do want to say thank you to everybody. I apologize again. As I think a lot of you know, I'd been dealing with some kidney stone issues. I'm happy to report the kidney stone finally passed on Thursday evening-ish. It was a glorious feeling. I slept for several days in a row, and I am getting back to normal. Whether me and normal are a good thing or a bad thing, we'll leave that up to everybody else to decide. I am still using my, I think he's talking about Jerry. Yeah, Jerry's been doing some videos. You gotta, if someone can post the link to Jerry's channel, actually, if he's in here, I can even do it. Let's see if I can make some things happen. We'll talk about that in 1 second. I got distracted. What was I talking about? I know what I was talking about. My setup is still weird. There's a GoPro here, and I've got this wide shot so you can kind of see the lack of stuff behind me. That's basically 70 inches and down is clear and ready to go, but my computer is still on a still low to the ground. I'm still sitting on a little short stool. My my trackball is sitting on a chair next to me, so we're still getting into it. So Robert, the time saver. So I did take it, so everything's down, right? From 70 inches and down, everything's gone. The time saver is still 80% intact. It is in the storage unit. And the thought was that I'm going to hold on to it and probably build it up as something that I can take places and set up and have it be remote operated from, you know, events and stuff like that. So we'll see. Derek, yeah, so I did get your message. If you can email me, that would be fantastic. But this Saturday, the 19th at about 9 a.m., we're going to get started on the Benchwork stuff. But please, if you would email me, that would be fantastic. The time saver will be, I don't know, it'll so much be a module in that it will be a standalone configuration, but it will be something that I can, you know, take places and whatnot and so forth. But yeah, so today I spent a little bit of time, well, actually you can probably see it a little better here. So you can see these shelf standards, right, used to come all the way down, because I used to have, the model railroad used to be right at this height here. You can still see some of the marks on the wall. So this is where the model railroad used to be. So these standards came all the way down. So right before the stream, what I was doing is I had the grinder out, and you can see it right here. And I donned up in all my safety gear, and I basically went and cut and trimmed all of these down. I still need to what's that called? File the edges, clean them up a little bit, and then I want to paint this wall. This wall has seen better days, so I'm just going to put a little coat of paint on it. We'll be all covered with the benchwork and everything, but I'm a big fan of starting with a nice clean slate. Yeah, so what people might not know about me is I actually did an apprenticeship in a metal shop for 2 years. Through it, I was able to get into IATSE, which is the Stagehands Union. So I've done a little bit of metalworking in my day. I've done some welding and all that kind of stuff. I don't like to admit it sometimes, but no, not found the banana peel yet. We're still looking. We're still looking. There's still a couple corners, so it might still show up. Yeah, if you haven't seen, Tammy's been doing some videos lately of her Barbie Dream Castle. It was all pink and glorious, and there were Care Bears and Teletubbies and all sorts of fun Barbie and Ken type of things. Jub, my new layout is going to be one level. Why don't we jump into that? Heath and Power Tools. I know I did. Ironically, you know, I got all the stuff, right? I hate the smell of the grinding metal. I mean, I lived in it for 2 years, and it was long enough ago that nobody really wore respirators. So, you know, I had the respirator on, I had the face shield on. I was taking the precautions that I needed to take. It is true, Andy stopped by when I was installing the air conditioner, and I bought some aluminum C-channel and made a whole little bracket to get it in there. There's nothing wrong with the common folk and woodworking and metal shop. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. I mean, I've done it I love, if I had the space, I would have a small wood and metal shop. I think the ability to build things is to some extent a lost art, and I do enjoy doing it. We needed a new kitchen baseboard. My girlfriend and I walked over to the local hardware store that sells, it's like pre-primed molding. So they have this like 1x4 square molding. We bought a piece of that. I cut it down, painted it, put it in. You know, there's something to say about working with your hands, but that is why I like, that's why I like model railroading too. I mean, it's part of that building process. I'm drinking from the water and there's no water in it. Well, I guess I messed up and did that. Oh, welding aluminum is hard. You can MIG weld aluminum. I found TIG welding so much easier, but I also just liked TIG welding more in general because MIG welding and stick welding to me is just such a mess. Yeah, it is true. There are enough problems. And Tammy, I know, I get it. It's all fantastic in the fun of it. Always changing. Very true. Let's jump in and take a look at the layout, because it sounds like there are a couple people that maybe haven't seen some of it, so maybe it would be good to show off a little bit about what I'm doing, but I do want to make sure that I get into the bench work. Been getting, I think I mentioned, getting a lot of comments on the bench work about, well, this is YouTube, so a lot of comments about what I'm doing wrong, why I should be doing it differently, and all that kind of stuff. And I thought about the bench work for a long time, and there is a reason why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for everyone, but it is what's going to work well for me and for my space. So, well, actually, I know, right? You think like rule number one, you think, you know, if somebody wants to make Barbie's dream castle, let them make Barbie's dream castle. I don't know what the big deal is. I thought it was good to hire somebody that knew a lot more about wood than I did. I did do my research as well. I did get recommendations from the committee, but at the end of the day, I made my own decisions. I made the decisions I needed to do. So. Thank you, Mr. Foltz Bailey, giving me a $5 super chat so that I can feed Jerry when he comes up here with a single slice of pizza. I'll get Jerry whatever Jerry wants. If Jerry wants pizza, we'll get him pizza. If he wants Thai food, we have some great Thai food up here. If he wants some Mexican food, we got all kinds of stuff up here. So it's pretty good. I think constructive criticism done right is important. I think that we can all grow if we, quote, critique each other in the right way. And critiquing shouldn't be about tearing things down. It should be with the goal of building things up. And I do think that is possible as well. Andy, what's ironic is I used to love Thai market. I haven't been there in a long time, though. I tend to go to Malaysia Grill. If people don't know, there's Thai food. We think about Thai food, but the food in different areas of Thailand is very different. So Thai markets, Thai food is very different style than Malaysia Grill's stuff. So it's good to have variety. Lynn McCurdy with the $10 super chat so that I can buy Jerry a drink when he comes up here. It is warm. Not as warm as Texas these days. I've heard they've got some heat going on down there, but we still have a little bit of warmth here as well. Woodworking is easy, it's hard. I don't know if you mean it isn't easy, it's hard. I don't know. But thank you. Any way you look at it, thank you for the $5 super chat. No, I'm not big into the dirty water dogs, but it is. Yeah, no, and that is true, Anthony. I think the problem a lot of times is you need to know the person and know what they're trying to do to offer suggestions. If you're just offering suggestions off of a quick glance and not really understanding what they're coming from, 110. That's too warm for me. Robert, are you asking what version of the layout we're on? I don't know what let's see. This is 113, but I actually have a version 114 as well. 114 has some more Benchwork stuff in it. I'll show that in a second. I've been doing a lot of printing things out as well. I can actually, let's see, where is it? Oh, here. 114 Benchwork for printing. So that doesn't look right. 112 for printing. Here we go. So one of the things that I did was I took, and this area here is what I printed out. So I oriented stuff around, and I made, let's make this bigger. I, in 1x1 scale, printed out the layout. So it's already printed out. It's ready to go. So Container Man, I saw your question about the Highline. Let's go look at the layout real quick, and I'll show you what I've kept and what I haven't kept. It is now a single level layout, and the single levelness of the layout was kind of for a couple reasons. I think the main one is that it opened the space up, and I just wanted to open things up, make things a little less crowded, I guess. I could always go back and add things later. So instead of going out and then having the loop over on this, I'm like talking as if you can see it. It's all one level now. When I start talking about the Benchwork, I will explain how it is one level, but there are some height changes to the Benchwork, but there aren't any height changes to the track. So the track always stays at the same exact height, but the Benchwork height changes to give me some variances in the layout, some peaks and valleys for scenery and stuff like that. So we'll get into that in 1 second. But we used to have a yard. It used to go out. It used to loop back over on this side and then come back to another yard. Now we're all on the on the same page. Oh, Dennis. I guess I'm getting payback, right? If you don't know, Dennis does a bunch of premieres on, is it Mondays and Thursdays, or is it just I just show up when Dennis does a premiere, and I usually show up just to give him a hard time, so I guess I deserve it. But yeah, so we're now back to a single level track plan. This here there is a yard and separate staging. A lot of people have opinions on whether the staging should be separate from the yard. My theory is that staging is like 1,000 miles north of where this yard is. So they are not in the same physical location, even though they're in the same physical location. So that may or may not change, but this is the way it is now. Added a little industry down here. I found it was interesting when there were industries near where the yards were, so that there was some work that the yard crews could do that wasn't just classifying trains. This right here is just sort of two tracks. One's the main line, one's kind of the yard lead. It comes in front of the windows, so I wanted to keep this area as minimalistic as possible so that I can still access the window and be able to climb over stuff as well. Yeah, so the intention is, I don't know if I'm exactly going to use trees, but the idea is that the trees are a view block. I don't remember who was talking about it. It was either on a Second Section podcast or on Around the Layout podcast, where somebody was talking about how you want a view block to give a sense of space, but you still want to be able to see through that view block. So when you dial up a locomotive, you could tell whether you've actually got control over it. Sometimes when you're coming out of hidden staging, you don't know whether your train is moving, you're just sort of hoping it's moving. So the idea of using trees or some sort of view block that's got like windows and stuff in it, and we'll talk about that when we get to the south staging area, but a view block that's got some windows so you can still see what is behind it, but it is giving an appearance of some space. Yeah, Ray says, heck, my staging area represents two cities that are hundreds of miles away from each other in reality, but sit next to each other. Exactly, and that's kind of what I am doing as well. Ray's asking, do I listen to Around the Layout podcast? If you held a gun to my head, I wouldn't admit it, but in private, I might admit to it. So after we get through the little section in front of the window, we get into Manhattanville. There's a passing siding and some small industries. Then we're going to get into what I'm calling my signature scene, but essentially it is a small yard, a car float over here, a little freight terminal, a team track. I poked a little another industry up here in the corner as well. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. The idea for operations being is that you can have somebody here in this yard, you can have somebody down here in this sort of yard or car float, or maybe a team of people even. And then you could possibly even have a third person or other, running a local out to Manhattanville and back, or even running trains from the north staging as a bridge or a through train straight into the south staging area. The south staging area, I got it boxed out, and what I'm working on doing is Andreas Werner, who created the C&J, what's it called? The C&J like harbor scene in N scale. He did an N scale, really incredible. Started doing some laser cut buildings around New York City. So I sort of jokingly threw out to him, I said, hey, like, what about the power station, the 1904 power station for the one train, which was, one of the first subways. I plan on actually modeling the one train. I'll show you kind of where that is on here in a second. But I said, like, hey, can you like maybe build that power station? It's got these nice big windows in it. So the idea being is that this here would be a model of the subway power station, but it would have a bunch of windows and stuff in it so you could see through it and see the trains inside it that would kind of be in staging. So where's the circus going? Unfortunately, I will try and probably have some circus through trains, but I'm not gonna have a circus scene really on this layout, and I did it a little bit. I did it a little bit because of space constraints. Doing a circus scene takes a lot of open space, and I've really gotten into operations lately. I don't plan on getting rid of the circus stuff. The circus stuff is still the long-term dream of having a big circus scene on my layout, but for now, this layout I don't think is going to have any circus scenes. I am likely going to have some sort of like park scene over here. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense to have a park scene between a yard and a car float, but for lack of space, let's say, a lot of this layout is going to be background flats and then scenic details. So like I'll probably have a park in here, but I won't really have any big buildings or anything. The buildings will all be along the back. Yeah, no big top. No big top for now, but we'll get there. We'll get there one day. And I can, it's one of those things I think like when if I don't want to work on the layout, maybe I can, build something something for that. But we talked about the subway power station, and the plan for the subway power station is that it's got to feed a subway. So we do have, I don't know if you can see it flashing on and off, but right here, there is a subway train that I have. It's going to reveal itself here on this end, underground, of course. And on this side, you'll have to, what's it called? Suspension of disbelief. On this side, the subway is going to be in the water. I know. But it's just where it is. I can move it up here a little bit, but I don't know. So the subway's going to go here. It's going to disappear. It'll be hidden, and then it'll pop out again here underneath Manhattanville. And it'll just go back and forth. It'll be on the Motorman, and it'll just go back and forth. Dennis says, I like how the road upper left doesn't interface with the track on a parallel perpendicular. Yeah, so the idea here is this road here is actually up on a bridge. So if you go look at the 69th Street Transfer Bridge and you look back towards the city, you'll see a whole city scene, and this is a road that is up on the upper level. This road is going to come out from underneath it. So this is basically going to be my view block to separate the railroad from the backdrop. Then this road is going to come out, and a big reason, there's a couple reasons for this road. One of the reasons is I needed to be able to get vehicles to the team track. So this whole area, so not just this road, but this whole area around the team track, I'm going to make kind of like an asphalt parking truck area or whatever, where, trucks can come in here either from, this way and up or from this way and down, pull into the team track area, line up somewhere and be able to pick up their material. So that is one reason for this road. The other reason for this road is something that we'll see a little bit more clear when we get to the benchwork, but I'm going to try and explain it right now, and we'll see how it goes. This road is also acting as a view block between this scene up here, this kind of whole scene up here, and Manhattanville. Manhattanville, the train tracks in this area are up on top of bridges. So the track height from here to here is not going to change. But the benchwork height from here into this area is going to be different. It's going to be much lower here so that I can build the bridges, whereas here it's going to be at ground level. So this road here is going to act as the dividing line between the two scenes. Bernard, you didn't miss anything. Yeah, Mike, there was one person in particular who was trying to convince me not to do the subway. I just couldn't, I had to do it. Yeah, so the passenger trains that are going to run on the layout are likely going to go from staging to staging. There won't be any passenger stations on the layout, but there will be passenger trains that will pass through the layout. And I have an Amtrak train that I'd like to run. I have a New York Central train I'd like to run. I have a Pennsylvania Railroad train that I like to run. So what era am I modeling? I don't know. I'm modeling what I want to model. You can't see the yellow track through all the yellow grass. I know. I did kind of make it all. I did kind of make everything a little bit the same color of everything. But yeah, so the other thing I needed to do as I was laying everything out is I had to figure out where I was able to where I was going to be able to put the Benchwork and still be able to get all of the turnout motors in. And I know I could hear people already saying, why are you doing turnout motors? It's an ops based layout. You have, there's, the depth of this Benchwork here is only 15 inches. So it's an easy reach to get to all these turnouts. So why would you motorize everything? Again, this comes down to what I like about model railroading, and what I like about model railroading is the wiring and the electronics. To me, the wiring, the electronics of a layout, that's the circulatory and the nerve system of a railroad, and that's the part of it that I really like. So that's the part that I'm focused on. Other people are more into scenery and structures and that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping, I'll come help people wire stuff, and hopefully they'll come help do some scenery, and we'll get together. But yeah, I mean, I love the wiring. So what is your curve radius? The tightest curve, there are the two tightest curves on the layout is this track right here, and this is a 11-degree radius, and the other one that is tight is the one over in this corner, which is also an 11-degree radius. So the reason why these two are okay being 11 and everything else is wider than that, I think this is 12 here, this is 12 here. I think if we go over to the other side, this is this is 14.25. So yeah, 11-inch radius and end scale. James, if you're not going to come help me build my Benchwork, I'm not going to help you wire your layout. It's just the way it is. I'm just kidding. But a lot of what I'm running are going to be 40-foot boxcars. And due to the size of the layout, my trains in general are never going to be longer than 8 boxcars. So 8 40-foot boxcars. It's about 40 inches of trains. So I'm not worried about 11-inch radiuses pushing cars into the car float around this 11-inch radius. I'm not worried about it because they're going to be 40-foot cars and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm glad to see I'm not the only one that likes the electronics. It is my favorite part. So we're going to jump over to the electronics in a second. Before we leave this drawing, I did just want to show I do have kind of an ops plan that I've laid out, and this is something that I would print out and hang along the fascia of the layout, just so you can kind of get a sense of where you are and where the different items are on the layout. Yep, Dave, that is correct. I do also have a bunch of 36-foot, those yellow billboard cars as well, but yeah, it puts me around 1960s into the 70s, because the reason it puts me into the 70s is the story of the layout is that the Human City Junction leasing company purchased New York Central's boxcars when they were closing up the west side of New York, and Human City Junction started a company called Riverside Transfer, which was the operator of the West Side branch line, basically along New York City. So I'm kind of playing in the 60s and 70s, but you know, yeah. The other thing I'm building out is a wiring plan. I want to make sure I know where all of the breaks are that I'm going to need in the layout as I go to wire it. I decided to wire for CTC. It gives me the most flexibility, and my experience from the other layout that I built, doing the extra detection zones doesn't add a lot of time to the layout, especially at this size of a layout. So it'll allow me a lot of options. Ray says, Split Rock and Heath are the two that I just cannot seem to get to agree to come on the show. Ray, you haven't asked me to come on the show. Ray, I told him if he wouldn't wear it, he would have to be a guest on your pod. I don't know what this conversation is. Otter Creek and Rio Grande, it was me didn't insulate the inner rail at the turnout, and the drops were feeding power back. Yeah, so I am going to, no 86-foot auto parts car. Although, I do want to have a trash train, because the trash train runs over the Hellgate Bridge out into Long Island, and while it really wouldn't have been on this branch, I do think it'll be fun to try and run an 85-foot or a train of trash cars that are 85-foot long trash cars. I don't know that they will fit. They will probably run into everything, but there are 45 turnouts on the layout as it currently stands, and that's kind of what I'm working with. Let's take a look at the benchwork, and everybody can tell me what I am doing wrong with the benchwork, because I know that's what everybody's waiting for. Everybody is just patiently awaiting. What did you use for the operation plan, wiring plan, graphics? I'm doing all of this in AnyRail. So this is AnyRail 6. Every aspect of this I am drawing out, including all of the bench work. I am just doing it in AnyRail 6. So starting with the Lynn, absolutely. I'll build it out in stages again. I saved all of the track from the last layout. I just nailed everything down. I didn't glue anything down. So I'll be able to reuse a bunch of that. But yeah, I do. Once the wood gets in here and I start working on that, I'll definitely start saving up for more track, because that's it. Mystic says, I've never seen a track plan like that. I don't know, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And the bench work isn't going to be green, but the fascia is going to be green. So hopefully I'll pick the correct green color for that. So when I was trying to figure out the bench work, I was trying to figure out whether Dennis, remind me in a second. We'll get to that. I had to figure out how I was going to do this just in case I ever moved out of this space. I kind of wanted to be able to save the big elements of this. So the big elements that I thought I kind of wanted to save would have been like this car float area. I'd want to save that. I'd want to save this area here, the kind of the secondary little yard that I got up here. And I'd want to save this area down here. So when I thought about that, I said to myself, okay, let's build out some bench work to put all of these different elements on so that if I need to, I could break it apart. So I started off kind of drawing some boxes, and there's a split you can see right here, because if I need to, I can just cut this here and then have the two pieces. There's a split right here. So this split here, I can then separate basically that one track, and I've got the split there. I'm splitting it here as well, just because, you know, to not have such a long wall. And then I'm splitting it here again at the end of the layout here. So I started playing with this, and one of the things you might notice is like this piece of bench work here, there is track that is not sitting on top of the bench work. And that is correct. The top deck, the top board of the layout is actually going to overhang the bench work. And there's a couple reasons for it, but I don't know that there's any good ones necessarily. But it's going to overhang here on the yard. But more importantly, where it's going to overhang is here. And if you recall, if I still have it, yeah, there you go. The subway, which is in the wrong spot because I dragged things around and didn't move it. The subway, as you can see here, is actually on the front side of the bench work. So the bench work was shrunk so that I could get the subway in front of the bench work, but then the fascia is going to attach to the edge of the tops so that I'm not blocking things. So yeah, it is a lot of track. So one of my considerations that I had to figure out is what type of wood to use to build this out. And I'm not using Unitrack. This is all going to be Pico Code 55. So I wanted to use a material that would be strong enough to do all of these overhangs and still maintain its flatness. At one point too, I was thinking about using a different material for the frames than I am for the bench tops, but eventually decided that it would be better and more efficient to just use the same materials for everything. So let's turn this off, and let's turn these off, and let's look at this bench work. So once you get rid of all the tracks, you got all these little squares. So the first thing is the outer boxes. I figured these out to be 3/4 inch plywood. So all I did is, in any rail, is I drew out boxes that were 3/4 of an inch high by whatever length that I needed. And, I made them, different lengths. And oh, I could, but that gets complicated, but I could. So I laid out all the little pieces that I needed and came up with the outer framing. What I decided is that all of the short pieces would be the ones that would get pocket holes, and all the long ones would be the ones that were continuous. So I figured out these outer frame pieces. The next thing that I did is I had to figure out all this internal framing. I was not really sure where to put the internal framing, but I knew I needed it sort of frequently, but not too frequently. And what I ended up doing was going back to the track plan, and I sat there and I moved these pieces back and forth, found a decent spacing so that none of the switch motors would be directly above a piece of framing. So Dennis was asking a little bit earlier about making sure that I'm leaving space for all of the turnout motors. And for the most part, I am. But this does take me to the next part of this, which we haven't talked a lot about. But each of these frames can now be set at different heights. And what I want to base the height of the frames on is, and that's another thing, right? Is the legs will be glued together, but not to the frame, and the outsides of the frame will be glued together, but the inside pieces will not, so that I will be able to move them. So I've got all these frames, and what I started thinking about was what height I wanted the layout at. I also knew that C, if you recall, what's going in C over here is Manhattanville, which is up on the bridges. And section A here has the car float, so there's a water scene. And section D over here wants to go in front of the window. So all of these things start kind of having their uniqueness to them, unique kind of things as you start building them out. So what I did was I decided to make the benchwork different heights. And then I will use risers, and the risers will be what raise the bench tops up over the framework. So my minimum riser height is 2 inches. The switch motors that I'm using are the DCC Concepts Cobalt Digital IPs, which when mounted in the smaller orientation are 2 inches. So the framework for the bench will have risers on it that then set the bench top height. So instead of drilling a bunch of holes through all of my framing to run wires, there will be a minimum 2-inch gap between the top and the framing that I can run all of my wiring. That's the other reason why I'm going with 3/4 inch plywood, because then that means I don't need quite as many risers. I will still use several of them, but that's kind of where I'm going. I did come up with a lot of this with a lot of talking to Dennis. Dennis was a part of the inspiration for some of this. But yeah, so people were asking, how deep is the benchwork? So the benchwork right here, let's talk about the signature scene. The benchwork is 12 inches, but the bench top comes out another 2 inches. So the bench top is 14 inches. The bench work is 12 inches. The bench work down here on the bottom is also 12 inches, but the top is 15 inches because that's what I have to fit behind the door. So it just worked out pretty well. So this here is going to be 96 by 12 inches. And you can kind of see I'm doing a little, a little swoop-de-swoop here. There's a little jog right here. This right here is where the subway is going to go. This here again is going to be, bench work that's kind of out in the wind with track below it. So I got some stuff to figure out. as I mentioned, the bench tops are all going to be the same. But if you look here, it says 48-inch high. That is the leg length. So my leg length is 48 inches. Plus I have a 2-inch riser, which is going to put plus 3/4 inch plywood. So it puts the layout at about 51 inches or so. But if we come over here, you'll notice I have a 47-inch high leg with a 3-inch riser. Why, you may ask, am I adding a taller riser in the section where I'm going to have a water scene? Well, it's because it gives me an extra inch to add a water scene. So I will still have my 2 inches of clearance, but I will now have at least a 1-inch depth to add scenic elements that are below the level of the track. And that's it, Dave. The 3/4 inch plywood with the number of plies that I'm getting, plenty strong enough for the overhang. It'll be plenty strong enough for all of the extra little sections and overhang. The way I'm going to mount the fascia is I'm going to have a lot of scrap wood, a lot of scrap pieces. So I will just add some scrap pieces underneath the bench top where I can. But also this is a 3/4 inch edge. So the fascia is hardboard masonite, and that 3/4 inch is plenty of room to screw fascia boards into. So I'm just going to screw it right to essentially the edge of the bench top. So if we come over here, you can see this is 46 inches high with a 4-inch riser. That gives me 2 inches of height, which if you're in N scale, you will know that 2 inches of height is basically the height for your clearance under bridges in N scale. So lowering the framework here, right? So I've got 48 inches here. I've got 46 inches here. And if you remember, I've got all this stuff. I shifted all this stuff when I was moving things around, so some things aren't lining up right now. But if you remember this road, I don't remember exactly where it is, but this road is going to be somewhere in here. And this road is going to be my demarcation from the 48-inch section, drop basically 2 inches down to ground level for this 46-inch section here. So this is where I am going to do my cookie cutter area. So this is going to be a flat piece of wood. This is going to be a flat piece of wood, but it's going to be cut out for the water on that one side there. But over here, it's all going to be cookie cutter. So if we look at this, and if I remove some of the labels and stuff, I will, from this point here, where this crosses here, to all the way over here in this area, it's all going to be cookie cutter. So I will have 2-inch wide strips of 3/4 inch plywood that will be the in some cases it will eventually be replaced by bridges that I will be custom building at some point. In the meantime, I'm just going to use the 3/4 inch ply, and I'm just going to cut it down, and it's just going to be my, it'll be cookie cuttered out so that I can have a lot of scenery below the, below it. Yeah, I don't know about that. Ian, I went back and forth on, do I want finishing screws that then stand proud of the fascia, or do I want to use flathead screws and wood fill them over and make the fascia smooth? I don't know yet. I don't know yet. Yeah, Kyle, I don't know if you're just getting here now. Everything's gone. So yes, this is going to be a new layout. Somebody asked, I think at one point, whether I was going to build a valance. I do actually have, oh, they're all tied up right now. I do have some lighting under here still from the old layout, but I do plan on building this out a little bit more fancy to put some really nice lighting here. The layout height should be about here-ish. I'm planning about 20 inches of backdrop to the top edge of the layout. So the idea being that the height of the layout is kind of going to be at armpit level. So not right at eye level, which for end scale would probably be ideal, but because this is an operations-based layout, not just a I don't want to say not just, but I'm not designing it for rail fanning. So I want it, I need people to be able to reach over it. So I'm kind of doing it at my, my armpit height. We'll see how that go. Yeah, trim screws would work. 2 inches in end scale is about 26 feet. I put this, I don't know if you can see it here. I went at some point and I figured out a bunch of these sort of things. I said, okay, 1 inch is 13 feet 4, 2 inches 26.8, 3 inches is 40 feet. I did this because I was figuring out the spacing between the tracks, and I was trying to get some sort of accurate spacing. So modern tracks are like 15 feet apart, which is 1 1/8 inches. Older tracks are 12 feet apart. So I was figuring some stuff out. So yeah, so I got the Benchwork. I'm gonna build the frames and then figure out where these inner pieces go when I know I showed this earlier, but it's printed out in 1:1 scale. So I will be able to lay these over the frames to make sure that I am putting my cross members in the correct spots before I actually put them into place. And the other thing that I started to figure out is where I thought I might want the legs as well. So I went and kind of marked. You can see, here's 48-inch legs. This here is a 48-inch leg, but it's not an L. So the idea being is it gives me a little support in the middle of this long bench up here at the top, but it doesn't block the ability to put a bunch of stuff under here as well. Hey, Damien, welcome. So this leg here you see is 46 inches. This here is 48 inches. The height of this 3/4 inch piece is 3 inches. So there is a 1 inch overlap between this piece and this piece. The idea being is I don't need extra legs in here because this piece will be bolted to this piece. So that's why I don't need a bunch of legs like all the way out into the corners. I used the chart in Lynn Westcott's book on how long of a piece you could have before you needed the legs. One of the things he showed was move your legs inboard of the outside of your frame, and then you can have 12 inches to this side, and you could have 30 inches to this side, and it all supports each other just fancy, just fine. So I don't remember the exact numbers, James, but I am very sure with the type of plywood that I'm using, 3/4 by 3-inch plywood, I'll be able to, I'll have plenty. This is plenty of legs for what I'm doing. So bringing the legs in a section, so there's some overhang on the outside. It just makes better use of space. So the doorway. Dwight's asking me what I'm doing about the doorway. This is a point-to-point layout. It is not continuous. A big reason for that is because the door swings into the room. Let's actually see. Can we actually see it? So the door swings into the room. So for me to make some sort of lift out or something like that means that once people come into the room, they're kind of trapped. There's no way in or out. I want operators to feel comfortable. I don't want operators to feel like they're stuck. So yes, the door opens and it does sort of block, this part of the layout. But again, I kind of planned that with my yard and my staging, in that, almost all of the switches and everything are, to this side of the doorway. So if somebody does need to open the doorway, they're not really getting in the way of the operator. I didn't want a continuous loop. It was something that I decided I was willing to do without when I, kind of as I learned, kind of as I went, through this process. So that's how I ended up with this. So I have the O scale and the G scale do run over the door. So I have my continuous loop set up. It's the O scale and the G scale. So if I just want something to run, I've got that. This is very specifically purpose built for operations. That was, the goal, that was the plan, that's what I wanted. So that is, that's what I wanted for this. And there's for what I am looking to accomplish, there is nothing added by trying to figure out how to put something in front of the door. The plan is that I'm going to be here for about probably 3 more years. I think that's the way things are kind of going. I think 3 years is where I'm going to end up in this sort of world. And in 3 years, I should be at a really good place where I could take each of these modules, split them in the corners, move them to another location, and reconfigure things. So I did work out a deal to extend the lease on this space. So I'm now, it's New York City. You can always get out of a lease if you need to, but yeah, I'm locked in now for the next 3 years. Filling the screw holes would only be on the fascia, so it would be very easy to split that at each of the corners of the module. And again, I know when I do split it, I know I'm going to need to cut a little bit of it. I know I'll need to rebuild a certain section of the ends. But again, that's kind of why I designed each of the corners to be as simple as they are and not add a lot of complication as well. So I do need to thank everybody. I keep forgetting to play the thank you video, but I'm going to play it now on my way out. I do appreciate all the support. Again, if anybody's around, please email me if you could possibly help out on the 19th. Many hands make quick work. So that would be much much appreciated if you're available. What did I say? The 19th at 9 a.m. But thank you so much, everybody, for the support. I love this community and I love this hobby, and I think it's just so much fun. So, from the city that never sleeps, farewell, model citizens.
It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. It's all about humanity.